Well, I've been dragging my feet on getting this engine built a little bit. This is still my 53 block here. I don't know if I ever showed the crack. You can kind of see where it starts and it comes way down here. It ends right there where the coolant stain ends. Pretty big crack. This engine had right about 245 or so thousand miles on it. You can see the cylinders still look nice. Pistons are really nice, at least on top. I haven't opened it up yet, but it ran perfect. I can't imagine that it needed anything more than, another hone and a set of rings if a person was putting this back in something. But of course the block is cracked, so I can't do that. Well, I don't know what the odds are of pulling your timing cover off and having all your timing marks lined up perfectly, but that's how I pulled the timing cover off of this thing. I shut it off, spun it around to get the torque converter bolts out, and then pulled the engine. Then when I pulled the timing cover, the timing marks are all pretty much dead on. Pretty crazy. I don't think that probably happens too often. I hope it's a sign of good luck and, not a bad omen or something. Not that I believe in that type of stuff, but anyway. So this is my 56 block. I was able to get it honed up and looking pretty good. Cross hatching looking pretty good in there. There's no ridge at the top or anything. I don't think this block should give us any trouble. I checked it with a straight edge on the deck here. Everything looked good there. Luckily my cousin runs a diesel shop and he's got a hot tank, so they cleaned it for me. It is getting a little surface rust kind of on it there, but I'll hit it with some paint kind of once everything is bolted up. I don't want to do it yet because I don't want any paint inside anywhere, but pretty much this block's just been sitting in the corner for a couple months. I've been spraying it down with some WD-40 to keep it from rusting, but it looks fine. I'm getting ready to tear this down, and unless something needs attention, I'm pretty much just swapping everything over, with the exception of I'll have new bearings, new rings. I'll check the oil pump real good. If it needs attention, I'll replace it. If not, I'll probably just put it back in. I'll just, of course, it'll get a whole reseal. Everything will be, all the gaskets and seals will be new. And this is assuming everything in the other block looks good. So, but hopefully, like I said, my other block engine ran perfect. Just cracked the block. So hopefully everything just directly swaps right over, and it's a pretty easy process. And then, I don't know, I was wanting to have this done close to now, including back in the truck, but like I said, I've been dragging my feet. So right now is January, let's see, Wednesday is February, today's Monday, so it's almost February 1st, and I don't know when you'll see this video, probably after the engine is back in the truck, maybe. If not, this might just kind of show the engine build process. But anyway, it would be great to have this thing going by spring. April or May would be nice. I don't know. I'm bad about not setting myself a timeline and trying to stick to it, so it gets pushed off because it's something I don't want to fool with. But anyway, I'm gonna get started on this thing. Kind of wanting to flip it over and put it on this pallet, of course, with some cloth down to protect it, and pull this down and pull the crankshaft straight out of that and set it straight into this with new bearings if I can do that, you know, if the crank looks good. Managed to get it flipped over by hand. I was a little nervous about moving it much by hand by myself because I didn't really want it to flop over on me or something, but I believe it's going to be okay. It set down all right, pretty easy. Do have a little surface rust just where my bearings go there, but that's no big deal. I'll clean that up. I did spray it down a little with WD-40. Like I said, it's been sitting in the corner there for a 3 months, I guess. And the cylinder heads at the machine shop, it should have been done probably a couple months ago, but I haven't needed it, so I haven't hounded him about it. He's a pretty good guy, so I'll remind him pretty soon here that I'll be needing it once I start making some progress on this, and hopefully he'll have that done for me real quick. But anyway, just want to show how I got it flipped over there. Alright y'all, so I'm going to try to get started on tearing this engine apart. Obviously the head's off of it. It's been at the machine shop for a while. I'm hoping to get it back soon. He should have done had it back to me, but that's usually how machine work goes. I'm going to go ahead and start trying to get this thing apart, and I don't know, we'll just see how far I can make it, how it goes, what works out and what doesn't today. So I'll go ahead and get started on it here. Oil pan's off. This is the inside of this dude. Pretty clean looking engine. Nothing in the pan. Alright, I'm going to continue on. I guess might try to get the cam out next. I need to get the flex plate and the adapter plate off the back here in a minute. Alright, I'm going to flip it over so I can pull the cam. So the cam's out. Right there are the lifters. Have to pull them out with a magnet. I'm gonna try to keep them all where they came from because I'm gonna be reusing everything, so probably won't matter a lot, but might as well keep them in line with where they came out at. Got to take the flex plate and adapter plate off, and get the timing cover off, and then it'll be ready for the crank and pistons to come out. Got my new main bearings here, and here's my new block. One I'm going to be transferring everything into, and So now I'm going to go ahead and pull the main bearing caps and get the crank out of here. Got the pistons out. Everything looks pretty good. There's some minor scoring on a few of them. I don't think it's going to be a problem. Just stuff to be expected probably with 250,000 miles, but they're pretty clean, not too bad. So I'll clean them up and put new rings on them. But you know, nothing looks like it's been hot or anything to me. Everything looks good, which I expected pretty much because this engine ran great and I believe it had been took pretty good care of. So I'm going to get the main caps off and hopefully I can carry this crank, pick it right up out of this engine, walk it over here and set it in this one. That's my plan. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can't get that done. I got all my main caps off. You can see there's no bronze shining through anywhere. They all look good, the bearings. And then the crank looks really nice as well. No scoring anywhere on any of the mains. So I'm not doing anything to this crank. I'm just going to sit it out of this engine and right straight into that one. So now I've just got to lay my bearings in over here and then get my back prepared to pull this thing out and put it in here. All my bearings are set in. This is your oil squirter hole. This should be the oil supply, I believe. And then the small hole should go down and oil the cam bore right here. That small hole feeds down there, I believe, if I'm correct. So I doubt if I can show you the feed hole. Can't really see it, but that's okay. This is your thrust bearing. You've got one of those. You can see it wraps around the main here on the block and limits movement back and forth of the crank. The rest of them are just regular bearings. So this is the thrust here. 7 main bearings on the inline 6. That's why they're better than a V8. One reason. I mean, you can't argue with that. 2 more main bearings. No, though they do, you know, that is a little extra support for your bottom end versus the V8 design. So, and the original bearings looked really good. So, all depends on how you take care of your engines too, though. Now, I'm going to pull that crank out and put it in this block. And hopefully I don't ever have to take it out again, but that's the hope anyway. So I'm going to see if I can get it transferred over. One other interesting thing about a Cummins is, I'm not sure if they're all the same, but some of them only have one cam journal bearing. This front one is a bearing, and the rest of it is just the steel bore, and the oil pressure lubrication just keeps the cam from wearing against the block, and obviously it works. I'm assuming the front one's got a bearing because that's where most of your load's going to be, most likely, being that the gear drive is up here. And here is the oil hole that I was trying to show on the other block a minute ago. You can see it runs up this way towards the crank bearings. You can kind of see it on the other one back there too. So I just thought that I would point that out for anybody that didn't know. Good enough. Look at the bearings in my block with, like I said, about 250,000 miles on them. Still look awful good. A little glare from the light, but I mean, those things would have went another 200,000 probably. Haven't pulled my tappets out yet, right here, so I'll pull them out and drop them in also. Just gonna keep them in order, make things a little easier. But there she is, in its new home. Haven't oiled anything yet with the assembly lube. I've got some assembly lube I'm gonna put in, or on the bearings and everything. But still on the fence about plastic gauging it. Originally I was going to, for sure. I really don't think there's probably much need to, just based on the fact that that's a standard crank that's never been ground, and I'm 99.9% sure never been out of the engine before me. And this block didn't have anything wrong with it, and I really, like I said, I really just can't see much reason to plastic gauge it, other than just a little peace of mind. So I don't know, we'll see. If I'm not gonna plastic gauge it, either way I'll probably have to lift the crank back out and put some assembly lube on everything. But right now I'm gonna use the crank probably to lift the block and get it on the engine stand, because I'm done with this one on the stand. So I can get this one off and put my new one on, and then that'll make it a lot easier to work on. Well, it's time to get the crack block off the engine stand, so I've got a chain on it here. I'm gonna pull the tractor in and get this one off and set it in the floor. I'll probably take the oil cooler off of it, and I might reuse the tappet cover. I already painted pretty red color. I got to get a few odd and end bolts and sensors out of it, but all that can be done on the ground. So I'm gonna get this off of here, set it in the floor, and then I will get that one and get it put back on here. So this one I just used head bolts and went in the end of the block here, the end of the block over here, and just covered my crank with that shirt. I did go ahead and just put 2 main caps on. They've still got the old bearings in them. I just snugged them by hand, that way the crank will be solid in there. If something were to shift, it'll at least stay where it's at. So I'm gonna get it put on here, and then I'll be right back. Got the engine swapped, no trouble. There's the old 53 and the new used 56, I reckon. As long as this one don't crack, we'll be in good shape. There's my two main caps that I put on just to make sure the crank didn't move if it were to somehow get jerked around. Didn't have any trouble getting it on the stand, thankfully. Went pretty well. That's gonna be it for this video. Next time I'll be plastic gauging the crank, and hopefully we can move through it fairly quickly. I'm not going to show every little step of every process. I'll just kind of try to update at intervals. So plastic gauge the crank and get the rods and pistons back in, new rings, of course all new bearings. Get the cam back in. I'm not going to replace this bushing. It looks pretty good. Just going to leave well enough alone. I think the oil pump is okay, but I'm going to double check it and make sure there's no scoring or anything in it. And if all that looks good, I'm not going to buy one. This engine should go a long time, assuming that I assemble it correctly. I really don't think there'll be any reason for it to have an early failure, but I've got head studs bought for it, and I just figured might as well go ahead with some head studs. And anyway, I'm gonna shut the video down here. Thank y'all for watching, and next time I hope for there to be some pretty good progress.